In our number 10 spot we have the Jag. Yes, I'm referring to a jaguar. Why in the world someone would desert a beautiful jag in the woods is beyond me. And it's an oldie too. I tried to do some research and I'm pretty sure it's a 1957 Jaguar XK140, if that means anything to any of you car guys or gals watching out there. Jaguars are on my dream car list, so this just makes me sad to see. I'm gonna make up a story as to why it was here. Once upon a time, a couple in their 40s who were deeply in love went on a Sunday morning cruise. They decided to park and go for a walk in the woods, but suddenly Bigfoot jumped out right in front of them and ate them. That was fun. If you like this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up as it really helps us out. In our number 9 spot we have stripped for parts. Here we have a mysterious car in the woods that looks like it has been stripped for parts. Yes, I know this tale. It happened to a friend of mine who owned this car. Yes, times were tough and he realized that he didn't have enough money to buy groceries. Damn. He realized that he had this car. The car as a whole wasn't worth much, but separately the parts were. So he took the car out to the woods with a plan to take it apart. But when he was out there trying to take apart the car, he remembered something that he hadn't thought of before making this plan. He had no muscles. In fact, he was the weakest man in town, and just lifting up the hood was a mission. So he gave up and left the car in the woods. The end. In our number 8 spot we have the clown car. Man, I wish I was a car person so I could tell you what this car is. If there is anyone watching that can name all of the cars on this list accurately, then I will dub you the GOAT of this channel. I shall bow down to you. I can't tell if this car was once orange or white. The orange could be rust, but it's quite vibrant. I'm gonna say there once was an orange car that was obviously driven by a clown that broke down while this clown was on his way to a birthday party. The car was the last straw in a series of unfortunate events that kept happening to him. He decided that this was a sign, and once and for all, he would quit clowning around. And he never looked back. The end.
Badlands National Park, located in South Dakota, is considered to be one of the most haunted places in the United States. Many visitors and park rangers have reported paranormal activities in the park, including ghostly sightings and eerie sounds. The area is known for its rugged terrain, deep canyons, and eroded rock formations, which have become the perfect setting for various ghost stories. It is also home to a dark history of violence and tragedy, leading to many rumors of possible paranormal activity. The area was once a haven for outlaws and bandits as well, who would often take refuge in the rugged landscape. It's rumored that the spirits of these notorious criminals still haunt the park, with visitors reporting strange noises, apparitions, and just feelings of being watched. Visitors have also reported strange lights and unexplained sounds and eerie shadows within the park. The Deer Head. A ranger at Yellowstone National Park posted the following story on Reddit. They stated that they had been exploring the remote Lamar Valley, situated miles away from the nearest road and the park boundary. While wandering on the trail, the ranger came across a bizarre sight: a perfectly severed deer head in the middle of the path. There was no evidence of blood, and the head seemed to be untouched and intact. The person had previously come across the kills of bears and wolves, and even tracked the kills of cougars in South Dakota, but this was something else entirely. The head was of a doe and didn't have antlers, so kind of unlikely that it was a hunter committed this act, and it didn't make sense for someone to even leave the head in the middle of the trail. Just a perfectly severed, intact head. Yeah, pretty weird. Next up we have the booby trap. In April 2012, a US Forest Service law enforcement officer named James Schaufler was on patrol in a popular recreation area located off Big Springs Trail in Provo Canyon, Utah. While on foot, he came across what looked to be a tripwire, and to his horror, he discovered a primitive booby trap that was set to activate when said tripwire was crossed. The vise was made of a large rock and had sharpened sticks of it, forming kind of like a spiked ball that of course could have hit an unsuspecting person and caused some serious harm. After dismantling the trap, he found another tripwire designed to send someone falling into a bed of sharpened wooden spikes, very Mortal Kombat style. Schofler's quick thinking and sharp eyesight prevented a potentially very serious incident from happening, as the booby traps were located only half a mile from the recreation area's parking lot. It was fortunate that no one was injured, especially since there was a child's birthday party being held in the area at the time. Yikes. The traps were dismantled, and Schofler's actions were instrumental, obviously, in keeping people safe while enjoying the area's natural beauty. Thank you, James. The next story comes from us to another Reddit user, Shiny Brian, who picked quite the spot to relieve himself. He had a job fighting forest fires in the Pacific Northwest and described his scariest encounter as such. My scariest wilderness encounter was about 2 a.m. while maintaining a fire line on a 300-acre fire caused by a lightning strike. I needed to take a number one, and the rule is you don't take a number one on the fire. So I walked over towards a stump outside the fire line. I was about 50 feet away from the stump when it walked away. It was a black bear. I feel like I would have just shrunk into myself if this ever happened to me. I mean, just seeing a stump you were looking at move, first of all, is scary, and then to see it's a bear, yeah, no thanks. Alright, Lake Crescent in Olympic National Park is steeped in legend and ghost stories. One of the most popular legends surrounding the lake is that it was created when part of Mount Storm King fell onto a battlefield, crushing the combatants and creating the bed of the lake, according to legend anyway. However, a more recent and factual story is that of the Lady of the Lake. In 1940, the body of a woman was found floating in the lake. Her body was eerily well preserved, likely due to the natural process of saponification, which gave her skin a kind of waxy texture. The woman was later identified Haley Latham Illingworth, a local tavern server who had disappeared in 1937. Her husband, Monty, was identified as the culprit after authorities found strangulation bruises on her body. Despite the mystery being solved, though, visitors to the area still report seeing the ghost of her lingering on the shores of Lake Crescent, making it one of Washington's most haunted trails, supposedly. Next up, we have the bear attack. Jordan Carberry, a Canadian park ranger in Bella Coola, British Columbia, had come across some bear cubs in a tree. Never a good sign. You do not want to come across grizzly bear cubs in the wild, as cute as they are, because where they are, the mother is close by, and she does not want to see you. And this was no exception. One of these cubs happened to fall out of the tree and caught the attention of the protective mother bear, who began charging towards him. The grizzly bear tackled him from behind, picked him up by his head. Bear then picked him up again by his thigh and dropped him down repeatedly. Using what he had learned from a defensive training class, though, the park ranger, Carberry, kicked the bear in the face as hard as he could and managed to create enough space to run back to his house. Since he didn't have cell service, though, Carberry actually had to drive himself to the hospital with one arm over his belly, just telling himself repeatedly not to pass out. Despite his injuries, Carberry did recover, and during recovery was quoted as saying he felt fan-freaking-tastic. So, amazing. The last story here, this is a personal story, at least one that happened to a buddy of mine. I call it the Waving Man. So my buddy used to be a camp counselor. So yeah, not a park ranger, but hey, close enough. Anyway, he took kids out on portaging trips. It used to be like days-long trips. We'd canoe, and then you'd traverse through the forest with the canoe, and then you'd canoe again. That's what it's called. Anyway, so one day they're canoeing, they're getting to their next site, and they happen across this man on the side of the shore, and he's kind of asking my buddy, hey, where are you guys camping and all this stuff? And my buddy Max, he doesn't really tell him because obviously he's got kids with him. He doesn't want some guy coming around their campsite. But they make it to their campsite that night. They set up the fire, they set up their tents. The kids go to bed. Him and his fellow camp counselor are in their tent. And then they start to hear what sounds like footsteps kind of walking around their campsite. And they're thinking like, okay, maybe it's one of the kids who's up or something like that. Unzip their tent. Nobody. Totally empty. campsite. Now they're obviously a little bit freaked out, right? Zip up the tent again. They hear those footsteps once again. They're like, do you hear that? Yeah, like I hear there's something. And keep in mind, they got kids with them, so they have to, obviously protect the kids. My buddy Max pulls out an axe he had with them, set up a fire, and they just stay up all night, just waiting for whoever this is to come out, or, might have to use that axe. They were really freaked out. Anyway, night goes by fine, no one ends up showing up. Head back on their canoes the next morning, and as they're heading down the river, they see that same man they met the day before just on the side of the shore, just waving and smiling at them. So, I don't know. Anyway.
Starting at number 10, Army Base Stairs. From Reddit user IronBoy21, 3 months ago, they shared their own story. This one is not in the woods, but I say it's a chilling story about stairs nonetheless. This user was on a North American Treaty Organization deployment, or NATO deployment, with the Army, and they were the person that sticks their head out of the hatch to look around while someone else is driving a tank. Now, while driving through a huge open field, they spot a staircase and decide to stop because it looks like it'll lead to a crawl space and it seems cool enough to check out basically. They stop and approach it and find some strange markings on the staircase. And then at this point, we know I'd be running, turning around and running for it. But this group decides, now we're gonna go check it out. And well, they get inside this strange little space that's big enough for maybe 3 people and find more strange markings, and they find human bones. The person who wrote this thinks a family hiding from war might have hidden in the cellar, but they still think it's odd since it's the only house for at least 100 miles around, since it's in an army training area. And then they end the passage with 3 little words. So, I don't know. They just don't know what happened. But from that mystery, let's move on to number 9. Island Forest Stairs. This is from Coated Lemons on Reddit about 3 months ago as well. They were on an Ohio camping trip up to Lake Erie on a small unknown island a friend told them about. So he sets up camp to eat and hang out, and then decides, I'm gonna explore the island a bit before it gets dark. 10 minutes in, he finds a structure that he investigates to find it's a stone staircase, but there's no indication that the stairs are remains from a house. There's no rotting wooden structures, no bricks, nothing of the sort. So at that point he felt nothing odd, and he was like, and I quote, hell yeah, gonna go back to the tent, read a book. But that's when his mood shifted. He got a horrible wave of anxiety and that he should run back to safety. But then again, he thought about the stairs. Then he felt compelled to go to them with his mind in a fog. He said, it was like a wave of indifference and curiosity washed over me, and I had this compulsion to go to them. I drifted over to the bottom, staring at the top. I was staring like a zombie, slowly walking up 2 steps at a time. I felt catatonic. I felt so out of it, so mentally blank, like something in me completely took over and I just acted out of primal steps. I was 3/4 of the way up when I snapped out of it and I ran. I ran as fast as I could. I felt so scared, like in my chest I was tearing up. I was running for my goddamn life. And so after that scary incident I just recounted, he got so mixed up with directions he ended up back at the stairs, freaked out again, and then ran again and somehow made it back to his tent. Then even more weird stuff happened that night, but to keep us on track with stairs, I'll just let you know that once he left, he came back again to the same island with a friend, and they searched the entire island but could never find those stairs again. So the mysterious stairs that gave that crazy feeling, who knows where they went. At number 8, Staircase Creek. This next story is from Redditor Ciavri from a while back, and when she was younger she would go hiking in the woods in California, and one time she had a really trippy experience. She was a little lost admittedly and found a creek so that she could follow it downstream, because it's recommended that if you're lost, follow the path of water downstream if you're lost. And at some point she had to step into the water to follow the creek because the sides of the creek were too high, and one of those times she found herself walking down moss-covered stairs. She couldn't really see the bottom of where they went and was nearly slipping due to the water running over the mossy steps. But then, even though it was around noon, the sky turned dark and everything went quiet. This is when she truly tripped and fell, and she says she fell into the dark. She woke up alone in a meadow with marks on her arms with no trace of the staircase or the stream. So the staircase and her just kind of got mixed up. I don't know.
But on to in our number 7 spot we have the traffic jam. Okay, this picture is wild. There are at least 10 or maybe more old cars jammed together in the middle of the forest. What in the world could this be? Either a car dealership owner was just like, hey, Mario, Get rid of them. Dump them in the wood. That was a horrible Italian accent. Or it was a fine Sunday morning in 1953 and all of the townsfolk from Bennettsville, South Carolina were driving to the woods to go to the annual summer picnic. They all parked their cars in the woods and then went on to their lunch. But around 3 p.m. that day, an alien spaceship came to Earth and knocked out the power everywhere, which meant none of the cars worked. All the townspeople had to walk home. So sad. The cars never worked again, and so they left them there. Let me know which story you think would be more likely in the comment section below. I'm going with the latter. In our number 6 spot, we have the 90s mom car. This mysterious abandoned car was obviously left behind by a 90s mom who was probably driving with her 2 kids one Friday morning to visit their grandma. With Dunkaroos in hand and Backstreet Boys on the radio, the kids were happy, and if they were happy, she was happy. Finally, she didn't have to hear them whine for 5 minutes. While driving, they spotted a lake with a bunch of swans in it, so they pulled over to get a closer look. She didn't realize until she got back to the car that the gas had been leaking out of the car, and now she was out of gas and couldn't go anywhere. It was cold, so the kids went back to whining. They walked for about 20 minutes to find a payphone when suddenly they saw those big, holy golden arches that bring everyone joy. Hooray, they said. God bless McDonald's. All was well, the end. That's probably what happened. In our number 5 spot, we have the gangster car. Don't ask me what kind of car this is because the only reply you will get is, a gangster's car? This looks like the kind of car you would see an Italian gangster own in old movies. Who actually owned it and its real story, who knows? It looks like it could have also been owned by Gatsby. Whoever owned it though, most likely was rich because even if you owned a car during this time, that meant that you had more money than most. There's also a boat beside it that was also seemingly deserted, so I can imagine that clearly whoever owned these very pricey items were discarding them because they were, evidence in a top secret crime committed by the CIA themselves. Yes, this car and this boat is evidence of their involvement in many dirty dealings, and so if you want to, once and for all, expose the CIA for doing the opposite of what they're meant to do and committing crimes themselves, then go and look for this car and boat. In our number 4 spot, we have the backyard of cars. There is an old abandoned house in the UK with a giant backyard filled with old cars. Why, you may ask? Well, there is actually an interesting story behind it that is supposed to be true. Actually, this one I'm not making up. Apparently the owner was obsessed with the idea of World War III happening, and so he collected a bunch of cars to eventually sell for scrap metal, but unfortunately he passed away, and so the cars and the property have been sitting there abandoned for 20 years. He probably was a fan of John Titor, the time traveler who warned everyone that World War III was coming. Probably. In any case, it's quite the sight to see as the cars are now covered in rocks and plants and have kind of become one with the earth. Apparently all the cars are classic cars, and even though none of them are extremely rare, it has been said that it is quite the collection to see. In our number 3 spot, we have the garbage car. Okay, this car kind of makes me queasy to look at because it was clearly used to store garbage. But why, I wonder. It looks like it's been stuffed to the rim with paint cans possibly. Honestly, I don't know what that is. If you can make it out, let me know. Some kind of tin can. It just makes me sad to see. Couldn't they have found a garbage bag to put them in? Why the car? Couldn't they have sold its parts or at least brought it to a junkyard? Maybe the owner couldn't have and they needed to leave it. I don't know. Maybe underneath those cans though is the skeleton of a body, and that's why they're packed to the rim. To convince people that it's just filled with garbage when really it's covering up a crime. Dun dun dun. In our number 2 spot, we have the Mustang. This abandoned car has created a bit of an uproar online as Mustang lovers are quite hardcore, or so I have now learned. Again, not too much of a car person, so this is news to me, but yeah, this car being deserted has made people sad. I wish I could tell all of you Mustang lovers where it is so you could go and see it, but sadly no location to report. It's probably hidden deep in the woods where no one can find it because its owner was so obsessed with it that he thought if he couldn't drive it, then no one can. And on that train of thought, he thought no one should be able to see it as well. It was his precious. In our number 1 spot, we have the vibrant blue car. This vibrant blue car that's been abandoned looks like it was possibly a part of a crash. The angle of the picture isn't great, so it's kind of hard to see if it actually crashed into the back of perhaps a green car in front of it or not. You can't really tell. However, the hood of the car looks like it's dented slash bending upwards, if that makes sense, which would indicate a crash. Also, I'm not sure if those are airbags that have blown up in the car, but it sure looks like it could be. Either that, or there is just a lot of garbage that has piled up in the car from over time. In any case, it looks like it was quite the pretty car in its prime. I'm not one to like colored cars, honestly. I like your basic black or white, but this blue is really pretty. I would never ever buy a car this color, but I can admire it from afar.
Coming in at number 10, we have the Demon Summoner. Oh, hello there. What would you do if you came across this in the woods? Now, on first glance, I would assume it was just there as a prank to freak me out, but perhaps if I knew that this satanic idol was now in the Ed and Lorraine Warren Museum for the Occult, I might be a little bit more freaked out. It seems that a hunter was out in the woods one day when he came across this horned beastie with wide blue eyes. At first, he didn't quite notice it as it blended in with the woodland, but then he saw it, started, and decided to investigate. The man said that when he walked up to the doll, he felt a very, very horrible feeling. All of his energy was drained and he was filled with dread. He said he turned away from the idol and then saw a man with white hair wearing a black cloak walking exactly opposite to him. He asked the man how to get out of the woods, and in silence the cloaked figure simply pointed. Haunted by the feeling that the doll in the woods gave him, the hunter called up paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. It seemed that the horned idol is used for satanic rituals for summoning evil spirits. The investigators went to look for it for themselves in order to check it out, and Lorraine was particularly affected by the piece, saying it sent her into a catatonic state for days. She even claimed that it made her levitate. This scary item found in the woods now lives in her basement in Monroe, Connecticut. Coming into number 9, we have the cabin. Who lives in a cabin in the woods, and what do they do for the majority of their time? Well, you may not want to know the answer. Mark Andre worked for the Environmental Services in Arcata, California, and was marking trees in the deep, deep woods when he came across a cabin. Okay, anyone seen Cabin in the Woods? Because it is terrifying, and this is like that. An actual cabin in the woods. The structure was around 12 feet by 15 feet and properly constructed. They knew what they were doing. Andre said, "I didn't see it until I was around 12 feet away from it. It was a perfect out of the way spot where it wouldn't be detected." Now he went to investigate further, and it seemed as if the cabin was abandoned but had been lived in recently. There was a lot of tin food, a number of knives in the hut, an eclectic selection of books including Catch Me If You Can, and a manifesto called Difference Everywhere, which included statements such as "community creates its own outlaws." What outlaw was hiding deep in the woods? We don't know because they were never found. Coming into number 8, we have the giant spider web. Oh hell no. Absolutely not. This looks like some kind of woodland Halloween decoration. In 2007, a walker was out for a hike in the woodland outside of Dallas when they came across this truly disconcerting scene. Honestly, huge spiderwebs covering large trees. If I walked through this, I would actually run in the other direction for fear of being eaten by a giant tarantula. It turns out the menaces behind the mess are Guatemalan long-jawed spiders, which do look horrifying, and they're only an inch long, so maybe not quite tarantulas, but still, spooky spiders. That would be enough to get me screaming. Anyway, the web came from an infestation of them, meaning there were millions, yes you did hear me correctly, millions of spiders in the area. It also happened in a similar part of Texas in 2015. These spiders need to be stopped.
7. Phantom stairs. So this story of stairs is from user Pope_Fenderson_2 on Reddit. 4 years ago, this person left a story from an experience they had as a child. They were out with older relatives in bright daylight when they spotted stairs about 60 yards away and walked towards them until they were about 20 feet away. They said the stairs were made of wood, clean and polished with no dust and no leaves. Kinda weird. And once they were that close, the light around them got dimmer and they looked back at their family. But their family looked much farther away than they actually were, and then a feeling of sheer terror hit them, so they just ran back. Once they got back to their family and told them what happened, they looked back, gestured, and the stairs were gone. When this poster's uncle heard the story, he became stern, saying, "There are things that appear different every time, these stairs or anything else, and these things lead to the spirit world, so avoid them." After this occurrence, the commenter lays down medicine and says a prayer of protection, then gets away whenever they see these stairs, and they recommend smudging yourself at the end of the day if you come across these things yourself. If you aren't worried or anything, at least, sage and smudging, it smells good, so it's never a bad idea. But on to number 6, waterproof stairs. From Melandon on Reddit, also 4 years ago, they went on a hike in the Cascades when he found 6 carpeted wood steps out in the woods and decided to investigate. It had begun to rain, but he wasn't fazed. And he kind of felt they were odd, but when he went up to them, the world kind of tilted slightly and sounded different. Like tinny different, and then as he went to step on the bottom step, he found himself not wanting to, and then sat down on the steps instead. Then he kicked off his boots and stepped on the carpet in his socks, which was oddly clean, but even more strange, it was dry. It had been raining for a while at this point, so that was kind of odd. And then he walked to the top of the stairs in his socks, and he described it as if the sound shifted even more, as if the sound was forming to a point, and then he stood there, was like, and went back down and left. So nothing bad happened, but it was a strange experience because it wasn't raining on the stairs and the sound was weird. But on to number 5, protected stairs. Now this was posted by Von Meowstein about 3 years ago, and they loved wandering in the woods either alone or with friends, and they'd come across stairs every often, not really thinking much of it. Then one time they were out looking with friends and came upon a dog that looked kind of like a wolf, aka a husky, and it was sitting by a set of stairs. And so the writer of this story approaches the dog that turns out to be friendly, but then wants to check out the stairs to see if there's any puppies, like I'd do that. But the thing is, when they do this, the husky tries to nudge them back to their group. And at the time, they thought this was the possibility of the dog trying to get some food from them, but on second thought, maybe it was a warning away from the stairs. They kind of left kind of confused, but if anything, the dog was protecting them. But on to number 4, survival stairs. Redditor Nizegard posted their own story about when they were on an island southeast of Alaska on an army survival test. Having few supplies, living in a dense forest and living off nature, he came across a random staircase in the middle of this dense forest. His army buddies write off this account of this experience because he was out alone in the wood for 3 days, but he swears he saw this. A staircase that was perfectly clean, just stark in the middle of the forest, no fallen leaves on it or anything. Then there was a strange feeling telling him not to investigate it when he puts his feet up on the staircase. Then he feels nauseous as the sounds around him fade away, something we've heard before, and then he snaps out of it, running far away without looking back. He says it freaks him out to this day, and it was an experience that came out of nowhere, and then now still, no one believes him. I feel like a lot of people are getting the nauseous in the sounds. But let's see where it leads with number 3, stairs lead to fall. Now this is from a deleted account, but a pair of people found remnants of an old house that must have been around from the 50s or the 60s, and the house was gone, but some furniture remained, plus an eerie metal staircase. So this guy that found it, plus his friend Matt, found it weird too, because there was moss winding around it and some green mold, but Matt decided to check it out. This story goes downhill from here. Matt made it to the top, but when he got there, he became so nauseous that he threw up and fell from the top of the stairs. Although it was about an 8-foot drop, Matt let out a scream because it turns out he had gruesomely broken his leg. After some quick first aid, the two noticed the woods became silent, except for a scream similar to the one Matt let out when he fell, heard further away. Then it was closer, and it had a lower tone and a kind of sound like it was wheezing. So they got up to start to leave, and there it was again, the wheezing scream, maybe 30 feet away, and then they tried to move as fast as they could. The screams from then on became more distant until they were finally out of the woods and able to get Matt some needed medical attention. But the person who wrote this said they moved away since then and warned people to stay away from things that make them feel off. So that's not an experience you want to have, really. On to number 2, stairs all the way down. Now, Redditor NebR_stairs from 4 years ago made their account just to talk about their stairs they found southeast in Nebraska. They were with some friends investigating the ruins of an abandoned farm, and they discovered a staircase going down. A lot of them we see are going up, and they say it was separate from the house ruins there, made out of brick, well engineered, and the group walked down for at least 3 flights of stairs with this horrible sense of dread. They described it as time slipping, sounds going away, and their flashlights going in and out. And they said that the stairs continued further down the 3 flights, but water limited the rest of their descent down, so who knows how far down they could go. But on to number 1, Amazon stairs. And this was from V838 on Reddit. So this is a story from a commenter's grandma that lived in an indigenous community in the Amazon long ago. Now, people tended to get lost around the area, including this story that her grandma told about an old man. He left to go check on the fishing nets in the river but was lost for 2 weeks, only found after women doing their laundry in the river found him trying to empty water out of a canoe with a bowl while it was raining. Now, the older man said that when he was out, he saw a set of stairs in the forest and climbed them. Then he only remembers being in that canoe out in the water for 2 hours, but he was missing for 2 weeks. People had been looking for him and had been to that area. And then another thing, he said he was taking out water from the canoe because there was a hole in it, but that's not the case. There were no holes apparently. And yes, there was water, but that's because it was raining. And he had begun to damage the wood in the canoe from dragging the bowl he was using across the same area, so how long was he really out there? What happened with the staircase? I want to know. It's just weird, man. You know, it's kind of weird.
At number 10 we have Project Amber. Project Amber is a very interesting travel channel. It follows Lance and his dog as they take a camper van through a lot of the UK and some of Europe. It's an interesting perspective to see how you can get by on very minimal resources. Now, for the most part, this is just a regular travel channel, but on one episode he runs into something very strange. He's driving through the woods in France and stops at a place to camp. He's doing a video breakdown and his dog keeps staring at an old locked up well, as if there's someone standing there. Lance is a little freaked out by this but keeps on doing the video. Later, when the cameras were off, he was approached by a bald woman wearing no shoes walking through the forest. He tries to speak to her but she doesn't communicate, and then she continues walking into the woods. He tries to follow her to see if she's okay, but then she's gone. It's endless woods for miles, so who knows where she could have gone. And then later he sees this.
I'm gonna leave.
The girl's running through the woods alone. Well, this is enough to get Lance freaked out, so he hightails it out of there and heads to a location which is over 50 miles away to leave this creepy mystery forest lady behind. At number 9 we have Mexican Fire Ghost. If you're going for a nice drive through a Mexican forest at night, you know how you casually go on night drives through the woods? Well, this might happen to you. Turns out in the forest of Texcla there is a flaming ghost that wants to eat your soul. Let's have a look. Now that's one of the scariest things I've seen in my whole life. I think I'm gonna have nightmares about that for 30 years. Apparently this ghost had popped up several times before they caught it on video. I don't know if this burning phantom really wants to eat your soul, but there's no way a flaming specter can be good for the environment. Think of the forest fires. At number 8 we have Yeti. Russian dashcam videos are literally the best thing in the world. They capture everything. You see gunfights, explosions, car crashes, and now footage of a mythical beast walking through the snow. Let's check it out. Imagine seeing that running around in the wild. I would hope that it isn't like eating people because we're like cousins or something. Aren't we related to Yetis? I don't know if they're real. But these guys are super freaked out, obviously, because they just saw something that most people think don't exist. I don't know what they're saying because it's in Russian, but if anyone cracks the code, please leave it in the comments below. By crack the code, I mean if anyone speaks Russian.
Coming in at number 7 we have The Switch. I found this picture posted on a chat forum for mountain biking. Now, one biker was off-road going through the woods and came across what looked like a satanic lectern and a wooden book. How long it had been there? Well, who knows. Now they opened up the book and found a switch. What it turns on, or indeed off, again, nobody knows. Coming into number 6 we have The Sour Pile. Sometimes things are freaky because they're so inexplicable. The strangest things provoke the biggest questions. There is definitely a story behind this strange discovery. I just don't know what it is. Lumber posted this image to Reddit last year simply saying, a giant pile of zested lemons found in the woods. Like, I'll say. There are literally hundreds upon hundreds of peeled lemons in a pile, but like, why? This scares me more than a number of points on this list because I've just got so many questions. One of the commenters, Junk Pile, wrote, perhaps it's a diversion. They didn't notice the shallow grave directly behind them. I mean, that's a good point. What were the lemons hiding? Coming into number 5 we have The Mask. So I do a lot of hiking and I've seen a few creepy things, mostly like snakes in the path, but I can't imagine what I would do if I was hiking along a trail, just enjoying the fresh air, and then look down to find this. Like, Hey there, bud. Who are you staring at? This is a metal mask that by the look of the oxidization is a copper mask. It kind of looks a bit like the one that Hannibal Lecter was forced to wear in The Silence of the Lambs. There is a long history of prisoners being made to wear masks in jail. Now, is this the mask of an escaped prisoner? The mask was found by a hiker who posted their discovery on Reddit, sending shivers down the spine of the internet. Coming into number 4, we have the pipes. When you see weird pipes poking out of the ground in the wood, you know that that isn't the full story. This story comes from northern Germany, where 2 friends were trying to investigate where the pipes went. And who did they find out? It seems that they discovered the entrance to a secret bunker by opening up a wooden lid with a crowbar. They then found steps and bravely went inside. There was a long corridor and a series of small rooms like prison cells. Some of the rooms were bigger and some of them were flooded. Now the rusted metal in the water gave it a reddish tinge like blood. They found abandoned shoes and gloves too. Who did they belong to? The hiker described the day as the spookiest trip of my life. I certainly see that. That would terrify me. Coming into number 3, we have the skin. In August 2016, a walker in Westbrook, Maine spotted this huge piece of shed snake skin on a trail. They then photographed it and showed it to the police. The discovery of a 100 feet long piece of skin came as reports of a huge serpent were made months before. Now on investigation, it was concluded that the skin came from a python, estimated to be around 10 or more feet in length. Why the skin was so long, I'm not sure. At the time, police warned locals to be on the lookout for a snake on the loose. Now the mystery reptile was dubbed Wessie and even earned itself a folk song and was honoured by a local brewery that named an IPA after it. I have to say, I feel a lot better about a beer than I do a giant snake. Wessie has still never been found and could be on the loose even to this day in the woods of Maine. Maybe she has a band of not so little Wessies alongside her too. Ugh. Coming into number 2, we have the Shrine to the Missing. In a turn of events similar to the Blair Witch Project, a hiker by the name of James Rankin discovered a truly worrying shrine in the woods near Long Island's Berkeley-Jackson County Park. There was a collection of around 25 real missing persons photographs taped to trees, a collapsed wooden cage surrounding a filled hole. Rankin recorded his findings, and here is a clip.
Anyway, I'll cut right to the chase because I might die. Look what these f***ing are.
The missing people's posters were of real people, which is pretty stressful. It seems that Rankin was genuinely worried that he'd stumbled across a murderer's lair. The hiker also found what looked like a campsite with a tent, dirty bedding, open cans of food, and a shovel. To me, this genuinely looks like the campsite of a murderer. Finally, coming into number 1, we have the bodies. The Akigahara forest has had a lot of airtime since village idiot Logan Paul went exploring Japan's infamous suicide spot at the end of 2017. The heavy wooded area spans 13.5 square miles and is northwest of the base of beautiful Mount Fuji. The forest was initially a great place for a hike amid nature. Some of the trees there are 300 years old, and in the winter, tourists can see a beautiful ice cave. But it soon gained a morbid reputation for being a place where people came to take their own lives. Now it seems that around 100 people a year venture to the forest never to return, and sadly this has somewhat ruined the forest as a place to hike. Walkers are regularly spotting abandoned tents, half cut down nooses, or if they're unlucky like Logan Paul, an actual decomposing body. I honestly can't think of anything worse to find while I'm out in the woods. Beyond that, local lore has it that ghosts, or yuri, haunt the forest. Now these are special types of Japanese spirits that are trapped spirits of people that killed themselves and want nothing more than to torment the living, like they were tormented in real life.
Number 10, a hool. Let's kick this list off with a certifiably pretty scary looking one. It is known as the ahool and is native to the rainforests on the Indonesian island of Java. It is usually described as a giant bat with a wingspan of around 20 feet, or sometimes as a massive flying primate. It has large claws and black eyes and is named for the sound that it supposedly makes. The first reported sighting was in 1925 by a naturalist exploring a waterfall who said that the creature flew right over top of him. He then saw it again 2 years later in 1927. He was staying in a hut listening to the sounds of the forest when he saw the creature again and heard it make its distinct sound, saying it was like nothing else within the jungle. It is said to eat large fish but will also apparently attack humans. It is apparently incredibly defensive and territorial, so it will attack any large animals that trespass across its land. Number 9. Flatwoods Monster. 70 years ago in 1952, the town of Flatwoods, West Virginia was terrorized by the Flatwoods Monster. There were a total of 8 eyewitnesses to the creature, 6 teenage boys, a dog, and their mother. One of the boys reportedly peed their pants at the sight of it, and the dog turned around and ran away. The report made local and national news, and the US Air Force even sent a team to investigate if the monster was an extraterrestrial. Here's how the event is described. The boys were apparently playing in a schoolyard when they saw a red light fly across the sky and then crash into a farm. They got their mother, along with a few other boys and their dog, and made their way to where they had seen it crash. They then apparently saw bright eyes in a tree, apparently being a 10-foot tall Frankenstein-like monster. They said it had a red body and glowing green face, and it may have had claws for hands, but they couldn't tell due to the dense mist in the forest. The famous sketch of the creature is absolutely terrifying to look at, and to this day hundreds of monster-seeking tourists visit Flatwoods every week. Number 8. Wahila. The Wahila is a giant wolf-like creature that is reported to live in Alaska and the Northwest Territories, sometimes considered to be the same animal as the saber wolf. So how is it different from a regular wolf? It is apparently much larger, with a wide head and massive feet, being around 4 feet tall to the shoulder. They have apparently never been spotted in packs and prefer to live alone. People in the area say that the Wahila are spirits with supernatural powers, apparently killing people by removing their heads. Because of this, it is native to what is known as the Headless Valley. There are a few different theories about what the reported wolf on could actually be, if not a supernatural being. Some people think that it is just a massive wolf on while others think that it may be a dire wolf that managed to somehow survive past the Ice Age.
At number 7 we have strange howling. Canada has endless forests that go on forever in every direction. There could be anything lurking inside them. There's everything from things that are deadly to things that are pure and innocent. And this mystery howling could be either. Based on what I can hear in this video, I'm going to lean towards dangerous. It's unknown what could be making those noises. Some wildlife experts think it could be some sort of large animal, but that kind of behavior is very unusual. There are those videos where cats try to impersonate dogs, and this could be one of those. Just a different animal like a mountain lion trying to impersonate a wolf or something, or maybe trying to impersonate fear itself. At number 6 we have more howling. It seems like terrifying howling coming from the deep dark woods is a lot more normal than we thought, but it doesn't make it any less scary. We have some more footage from a separate incident in Wisconsin. It's thought that it could be some sort of wounded animal crying out for help. It sounds like it could maybe be a wolf. Let's check it out. That is enough to make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. This video sounds a little bit more animalistic than the last, but what kind of creature could make that noise? If it is a wolf, what could be lurking in the woods that is so powerful and threatening that it could make a wolf cry out in fear like that? At number 5 we have an unexpected guest. You're hiking through the woods and you expect to see some nice birds, maybe a cute family of squirrels, but you forget that there's also a bunch of animals that live in the woods that would gladly eat you.
There's a mountain lion right here.
Holy crap, this guy had one of the top predators in the forest just walking up on him like it was nobody's business. This thing has no fear, and this is a few minutes into the video. This cougar has been following him for a while. He stands his ground and tries to get the beast to flee, and I guess the big boy was a little camera shy because he eventually turns and leaves. This guy got very lucky. I feel like those things don't usually turn and run tail. If they want to come at you, then you are done for. Unless you're this guy who killed a mountain lion with his bare hands.
It really clicked after I I hit it in the head with a rock and it still didn't release my wrist, that at that point, more drastic measures were necessary.
At number 4, we have more screaming. Even more screaming. Che, how many screaming videos are you going to include on this list? Well, I had to include this one because it seems like it could be some sort of ape-like creature screaming from the woods, so it could be a Bigfoot, and you can't have a list of scary things caught on video in a forest or in the woods without Bigfoot stuff. It's so necessary. I mean, it could be anything, but that doesn't sound like any sort of animal I've ever heard. Some people have made claims that it could be a howler monkey, but the video was taken in Georgia and there ain't no howler monkeys in Georgia, I'll tell you that much. At number 3, we have a man in the woods. If you spend a night in an abandoned hotel in the middle of the woods, there's a good chance that you're going to run into some sort of weird stuff that'll make you want to pee your pants. This was the plan of German YouTubers Iblali. They wanted to do something spooky for their fans. The footage was pretty creepy, and after they uploaded it, their fans found a little Easter egg. I don't know if you guys saw what was lurking in the shadows, but there was a man standing there, and they didn't notice that he was there until after they uploaded the video. Some people saw it and then highlighted it to the YouTubers. So who is this dude and why was he just following them in the woods? At number 2, we have Midnight Terror. So much of what happens in this video is horrifying. It's from the YouTube channel called MindCTV, and they decide to go find a bunch of condemned buildings in the middle of the forest in the middle of the night. Let's just go down the list of things that happen. First, someone starts following them as they're walking through the woods. You never see this person, but you can hear them whistling, you can hear their footsteps. Next, they hear this mystery stalker get very close to them, and they actually set up some bell tripwires, and the guy trips over them and they hear the bells ringing. Then they find the building, they go inside, and then they use this device to communicate with ghosts. This whole adventure is just one giant nope for me. I don't want anything to do with this, and I never want to hang out with these guys. Oh my god, they just seem like they attract terror or something. I don't like it. And for the number 1 spot, we have a horror scene. A hiker was walking through the woods. He follows a trail that leads to what seems to be some sort of small campsite set up in the middle of the woods. What he finds is very bizarre, unexplained, and terrifying. On several of the trees surrounding this makeshift campsite in the middle of the woods, it looks like there's signs set up. At first, it seems like they could be some sort of wildlife warning, but on closer inspection, you find this, and it's horrifying.
Look what these fucking are.
On all the trees surrounding this area, there are missing person signs. What the hell is going on here? This looks like the scene out of a horror movie. All of these posters are from people who have actually gone missing and haven't been found. The man recording the video keeps filming a little while longer, and then he hears voices coming, so he hightails it out of there before whoever these people are can find him. Once he gets out of this terror scene, he contacts the police and gave them the GPS location that he got from his phone, and the police go to investigate. This entire scene was connected to a nearby property. They claim that it was all decoration for a Halloween party. It was the beginning of October, so it's possible that the signs were connected to some sort of Halloween party, but it seems like they've been up there for a long time. They all have water damage, some of them have holes in them. It is so creepy and so weird. Alright everyone, that is our list, and as promised, I'm going to be doing some more pet shoutouts. You guys seem to love them so much, they're so great. If any of you want me to shout out your pet, you can message me on Instagram. I pick new pets every day, so if you don't get picked one day, just message back another day. You can do it. Message me as many times as you want. I don't care, I'm super chill about it. But also, if it takes me a little while to get back to you, I am very sorry because I have so many of these to do. There's like, you guys really like them, and which I love. I love the fans getting involved. Without taking any longer, let's shout out some pets. First, we have Brendan's dog. It's his birthday and he looks so cute with that little cake beside him. He is excited. Joseph sent in a picture of Gidget. God, I love pictures of sleeping dogs. They are so cute. Next we have Tori. Look how mesmerized that cat is. She is in love with those Christmas lights. Madison sent in Fox and Luna. These two are a couple of cuddle buddies. After we have Madeline's dog. Nice big cutie with a big ol' smile. And finally we have Elle's dog Sid. Sid has got a sassy look on his face, and I absolutely love it.
And we're kicking off this video with stairs. This is something that a lot of you have probably heard of before. There have been many stories and images surfacing online of people, as well as park rangers, coming across stairs in the middle of the forest, leading to some pretty surreal, haunting kind of images. These stairs are often found deep in the woods and can be made of a variety of materials, including concrete and wood. The stairs appear to have been constructed by human hands and appear to be in rather good condition, even though they are often located in areas where there are no buildings or signs of human activity. A supposed paranormal stories surrounding these stairs suggest that they are haunted or cursed, and that those who climb them are doomed to a terrible fate. Some claim that the stairs are remnants of long abandoned structures, while others believe that they are portals to other dimensions or the work of supernatural entities. And I gotta say, I mean, just seeing stairs in the middle of a forest, that would be pretty eerie for me too. I'd be just a little bit freaked out. The search for the missing teens. Reddit user Genesis Pro Tech shared this story. There had been a group of teenagers who went on a camping trip but did not return at the scheduled time. Worried about their safety, Genesis Pro Tech and his good friend, along with a search and rescue professional who knew the area well, were called to assist with the search efforts. After hiking for most of the day and covering about 35 kilometers into the woods, the search party began to notice some strange things. They came across sticks that were carved into spears and stuck in the ground, odd carvings on the trees, and a child's stuffed animal hanging from a tree. These items were all freshly carved, indicating that someone had been in the area recently. The thing is, this wasn't on any of the regular trails in the area, and it was far from any roads. Despite their growing unease, the search party continued to hike through the woods, hoping to find the missing teenagers. As night fell, they set up camp, still on edge from the unsettling things they'd seen earlier, and after a restless night, they woke up at dawn and prepared to continue the search. While packing up the gear though, they found a piece of ripped clothing and some shoe prints nearby. They thought, hey, maybe they were close to finding the missing teens. But then they received a radio call that the teenagers had been found about 20 kilometers away to the east, and that they were calling the search party back. They were pretty relieved about the teens being found, but understandably shaken at the same time. What was all that stuff they'd come across in the middle of nowhere? Next up we have Stalked by a Cougar. A Redditor by the name of Smokey the Marshmallow shared what they described as the scariest incident they had experienced as a park ranger. In Washington state, the ranger had been hiking up an unpopular trail leading to an old shelter where he had a strange feeling he was being watched. Although he had seen fresh cougar scratches and droppings along the trail, which were common in the area, he wasn't worried at first. That night, he camped at the shelter, which had only 3 walls and a roof. He felt a little uneasy throughout the night and didn't sleep much. In an attempt to feel safer, he arranged his emergency foil tarp around his sleeping bag, hoping to hear something if it approached him as he slept. The next day, the ranger found fresh cougar droppings and scratches on the trail he had hiked on. He continued on the trail and found a mostly eaten deer and some dense brush just off the trail. This was an indication that this cougar was nearby, and the ranger began to feel pretty uneasy, as he could probably imagine, given he was at least 13 miles away from civilization. As a result, he decided to just shorten his 3-day trip and quickly made his way out of the area. Probably a smart idea.
Number 7, Hide Behind. The Hide Behind is a creature from American folklore, and I bet you can probably guess what it's known for. That's right, it's shockingly good looks. I'm kidding, of course, though this actually could be true considering no one really knows exactly what one looks like. That's because it is actually known for its ability to hide behind things. You will be able to see it out of the corner of your eye, but if you ever try to look at it directly, it's nowhere to be found, hiding somewhere just out of view. It is said to attack people who wander the woods at night and was credited for the disappearances of many early American loggers. It will use its ability to hide to stalk behind humans unnoticed and then attack.
dragging them back to its lair to eat them. Creatures that can only be seen just in the corner of your eye can be found all over the world and in many different forms of media. So next time you think you spotted a shadow moving just off to the side, be careful, because the hide behind might just be creeping up to get you. Number 6. Wampus. You may be familiar with this one for its status as a house mascot for the American Wizarding School of Ilvermorny from the Harry Potter universe, but it actually is a cryptid that has supposedly been spotted across the United States. It is also known as the Wampus Beast or Cherokee Death Cat and is described as a large panther-like creature. It is described a bit differently based on where you live in the country. In West Texas, it's said to be nocturnal and have a loud voice. In Washington, it's said to have piercing yellow eyes that can drive you insane. In Cherokee mythology, the Wampus started out as a woman who did not trust her husband. When he went out to hunt with a fellow warrior, she put on a mountain lion skin in order to spy on him. When she was found out, the medicine man cursed her to wear the skin forever, turning her into the Wampus cat. It's usually cited and blamed for killing livestock, so you may not have to worry too much about this one unless you're a chicken or a sheep, but I would still be wary. Number 5. Hodag. Alright, the back half of this list consists mainly of creatures that I picked just because they had funny sounding names. So these ones may not be the most terrifying things ever, but you may experience a small amount of humor and let out a short forceful exhale from your nose when you hear the name. First, we are heading to northern Wisconsin to meet the Hodag. In 1893, a man named Gene Shepard said that he encountered the creature in the woods. It was described as having spikes down its entire length of its body, with a fistful of needle-sharp pointed spears at the end of its tail, fangs that would rival a saber-toothed tiger, and the ability to rip out the belly of the biggest bear. He brought a group of lumbermen back into the woods to capture the creature using dynamite, bringing back what was allegedly its charred remains. Later on, he would claim that he had captured a living Hodag, though this performance was proven to have been a hoax. Number 4. Whirling Wimpus. Next up, we have a creature said to reside within North American woods. It's described as being a similar creature to Sasquatch and Bigfoot, but it's not because it's a Wimpus and it is different. It is apparently a 7-foot-tall gorilla-like creature that will fool any animal or person. It will apparently hide at a bend in a trail. Then, as you get close, it will start spinning on one foot, making a sound that seems to come from the trees above. So you will look up to try and find the creature, and then it will kill you, making you into either molasses or maple syrup. I guess it just depends on what they're craving at the time. The Wimpus is sometimes described as having horse-like hooved legs and not having much fur. Its favorite foods are apparently people, turkey, deer, cows, and even bears, and the Wimpus was held responsible for the disappearances of many lumberjacks. Its whirling act apparently spins at over 2,000 RPM, and apparently it hunts most often at sunset. Number 3. Gewoggle. Now we have the Gewoggle, the official monster of Clinton County in Pennsylvania. It apparently hangs out on the hiking trails in the area, and sightings go back all the way to the 1800s. It was apparently a werewolf-like creature that could be summoned by a witch. It is 6 feet tall, shaped like a wolf, standing on its back legs. Instead of hands, it has bird claws, and its back feet are horse hooves, apparently to fool anyone who might try to track it. Witches would apparently summon them to harass nearby farmers who had offended them, the Gewoggle trampling crops, damaging tools, and other acts of vandalism. On the roads around the town's border, there have been multiple reports of people seeing bipedal wolves running along the side of the road. In stories, there is a man named Loop Hill Ike who would apparently help the farmers and set fire to the witches' homes. A little harsh, I think. Number 2. Snallygaster. The Snallygaster should not be confused with the Snollygoster, a totally different creature. The Snallygaster is described as a dragon-like beast that apparently hangs around Washington and Frederick County in Maryland. When German immigrants settled in the area in the 1730s, there there started being reports of a half-reptile, half-bird creature terrorizing the town. It was described as being like a siren with demonic features, having a metallic beak with razor-sharp teeth. It would apparently swoop down from the sky and pick up its victims, draining them of their blood. 7-pointed stars would apparently keep it at bay, and many local barns still have the symbol painted on them. In the 1900s, reports of the creature started up again, apparently screeching like a locomotive whistle, having claws like steel hooks, and an eye in the center of its forehead. When the Smithsonian offered a reward in exchange for its hide, President Theodore Roosevelt even allegedly postponed an African safari in order to try and hunt the creature. Number 1. Squonk. Alright, this final one is definitely not that terrifying, but I absolutely love him and I have to talk about him, and if you don't love him too, then you are just incorrect. Here's your friendly reminder that the complaints department is down below, and I definitely will take your concerns to heart. The squonk is a creature that lives in the woods of Pennsylvania, first being described in the late 19th century. It is described as having wrinkly skin that doesn't fit, hanging off its body and being covered in warts. Because of this, it is incredibly ashamed of its appearance and spends most of its time crying. Do you understand why I like this guy now? He's relatable. Hunters who have tried to catch a squonk discovered that the creature is capable of just dissolving into a pool of tears and bubbles when confronted. I also hate confrontation so much that I wish I could just dissolve into a pool of tears.